Hello and welcome to the FilmPulse.net podcast. This is episode number 115. My name is Adam. With me today we have Kevin. How you doing, Kevin? I love the pause and then
It was the pause. I was thinking, I'm doing it right, but nah. I'm like a meh.
Okay, alright,
Yeah,
I feel you. This week we're going to be speaking with director Alex Liu and talk about his latest documentary, A Sexplanation, which is currently funding on Indiegogo. Then we're going to be going over some of what we've been watching before getting into two feature reviews. This week we'll be talking about Ty West's The Sacrament, and we'll be having Film Pulse contributor Ernie Trinidad back on the show for a review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And finally, we'll be going over this week's movie predictions and DVD and Blu-ray releases. Packed show this week.
Mm-hmm.
Packed. Packing it up.
Whoa.
First up, let's have a chat with director Alex Liu and talk about his film, A Sexplanation. Alex, thanks so much for coming on the show, talking to us.
Yeah.
Let's just start off by telling the listeners, for those of you that don't know about your YouTube channel, maybe you could just give us some backstory.
Yeah. So I have a YouTube channel called The Science of Sin, and the idea of that was how do I get maybe a young adult, 16, 17, 18-year-old interested in science? My kind of passion has always been promoting science literacy. And, I thought, when you lose people at those age around science, it's usually because science stops becoming about, dinosaurs and space travel and these fun things that start becoming more abstract and you get into kind of the minutia of biology, chemistry, and physics. And I thought, well, when I was that age, what was I into? And I was into basically learning about sex and drugs. And so I kind of had this idea of, there's such bad sex and drug education in the country. This can kind of kill two birds with one stone.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of get to the science of pleasure, really, and also kind of help educate people to make more informed choices when it comes to making those choices.
So basically, it's like an R-rated version of Bill Nye the Science Guy.
You could put it that way. That is how I've been pitched before. Yes.
And so the YouTube channel covers not just sex, but also like drugs and things like that. Whereas
it's kind of I kind of taking a tongue-in-cheek idea of pleasure, but really it's about taboo. These ideas of that we consider taboo because they're pleasurable. So anything along those lines, I'll try to tackle.
So the film, A Sexplanation, that's just covering. Let's talk about that. So that's covering just the idea of sex in the modern times. What are some of the different things that you're going to be covering in the documentary?
Yeah, so this is I pitched this as a shame-free take on sex education, but basically this is my personal take on your high school public health education video, except kind of blown out and maybe a little more raw is maybe the best way to put it. But basically, we don't really get great sex education. We probably most schools, if you did get it, and if you went to a public school like I did, their main mandate is really to prevent pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections, and probably abuse. And so when you learn about sex from that angle, you kind of see it as dangerous, you kind of see it as risky. And while sex are those things, it's so much more, and there's so much more meaning. And it's really kind of taking that evidence. What do we actually know about sex, and really giving people the kind of from the perspective that sex is something that we're all going to pursue most likely in our life. What would I have to have known when I was 18, basically.
So is it going to get into, I would assume that it's going to take kind of a scientific approach. Is it going to get into the minutia of the act of sex? Is it going to get into different
Yeah, so basically the way I'm kind of layering it right now is, and we're kind of now getting into the fun part of deciding what stories to tell in the documentary, but basically taking it from a biological, so taking it from literally, how is your body reacting to sex? How does it, what happens when you're having sex after all those things? Then get the next level, which is kind of more your, and neurology, psychology, what are the hormones going through your brain? How does your brain react? What does it mean about you and your identity, all those things? And then taking it kind of the next step to the sociological, cultural aspects of sex, which is basically, how is sex used in society? How is it viewed in culture? And, how do you incorporate all these different facets into a sex life that fits who you are and is healthy, basically?
So it's also going to get into the idea of sexual relationships and people that have like casual sex partners versus people that are in like committed relationships, like monogamous relationships.
Exactly. I think when we think about sex and love and relationships, I don't know what your experience was like, but I probably, movies and television were probably my best education when it came to that. And in the real world, that doesn't necessarily translate to who you are. And, you're kind of given this very narrow band of kind of acceptable sexual relationships. And there's just so much more when it comes to the diversity of human sexuality.
Now, will you be like interviewing people that have different sexual preferences? Is it going to be like case studies?
Yeah. So we kind of want to do this. We'll definitely do this in kind of like what you're saying, like the Bill Nye the Science Guy kind of way, and getting at doing your little kind of science lesson. But really, I think it'll be more captivating to see someone who's kind of walking the talk, so to say. So getting someone who is into, say, BDSM kink, finding someone who is in maybe a polyamorous relationship, or finding someone who for sex is really not important to them. Really getting at the seeing how sex actually works in the real world, and talking to kind of the biologists and the sociologists and their life stories, kind of to create this narrative that basically shows sex is a very key part of being human, and a very key part of what makes a meaningful life.
Now, will you be profiling people that have like different sexual preferences, as far as like transgendered individuals and homosexuals and things like that as well?
Yeah, so we have some people who we've been talking to. We've been doing a lot of preliminary interviews, and the people fall along that spectrum, definitely. We're still unsure about if they'll actually make it to the final cut. But basically we think that we wouldn't be doing the documentary justice if we didn't touch upon the whole spectrum of sexual and gender diversity.
Yeah, because I feel like that's certainly one thing that's lacking in our sex education system. Now, granted, It's been years since I've had sex education in school, but I feel like, especially like for those people more than anything, they kind of need a little bit more guidance, because they're not sure what's happening with them,
and there's such an extra added layer of shame on top of that.
Exactly.
They're just it's so hard not to internalize kind of the societal messages we get that not only is sex terrifying, but it's like incredibly shameful because of just how you happen to be born.
Right. Now, do you see the way that sex is looked at in modern times, rather, do you think that it's different than, let's say, 15, 20 years ago with the popularization of the internet? Do you think that that's the way that we look at sex is different?
I think there's two things you can say about that that come to mind. The first is just the prevalence of internet porn, free internet porn. I think I kind of came of age at the tail end of that. And I would say that, pornography is how many people kind of are really first experience what sex actually looks like and how it actually works. And for me, that maybe I had an area to kind of understand what was out there, and to kind of understand what my fantasies were and what I might like. But it doesn't really get into the whole I mean, not only does it not going into like the basic mechanics, like actual sex does not actually turn out like pornography, because that's, highly edited and produced. But the emotional impact and the emotional fallout of sex, I think, I was not prepared for in any way. And so that, I think, is a huge component of our sexual culture today. But then on the other side, now with the internet, someone who is, let's say, transgender, homosexual, sexual minority, and in the middle of nowhere, can actually find that community and feel kind of less alone and less wrong about their sexual preferences.
So you kind of look at the internet as almost a double-edged sword in that regard.
Yeah, like most things about the internet, yes, there's great advances. I would say it's probably a net positive. There's so many great YouTube channels and different things that you can put online that before would find no distribution method whatsoever. But there is I think you have to be cognizant of the fact that there is still areas to watch out for, especially when it comes to sex.
Right. Now let's talk about the Indiegogo campaign that you got going on here. So I just opened up the page. You've reached your goal.
Yes, we just cleared it this morning. It's very exciting. So this thing, this and now I kind of can actually think about the fun stuff and how we're gonna actually make this.
So you have 25 days left as of this recording. You were looking to get 10 grand for the movie, and you've exceeded that already. You're 10,022 as of now. So,
Yeah.
do you have a plan for extra stuff that you'll be adding? Because I mean, with
Oh yeah, yeah.
25
So
days left, you're gonna go way
yeah,
over.
yeah. So the ten grand basically just secures us the basics of, cameraman, sound
Hmm.
technician, all that kind of stuff. But really to get this to say the film festivals, we probably will need about 30 grand.
Right.
And so, but in the meantime, if the more we get, it'll get to the better interviews, more interviews. We can actually talk to some of the experts who are maybe farther away from where I am. I'm based in San Francisco. It'll add to, better graphics, better animations. I think, when it comes to a science and sex, the education really does come from fun animations and graphics and that sort of thing. And yeah, and just the more we get, the more this will actually become like something I think that will have a real impact, to some more people to see it.
Now, do you see this as being a movie that could be played in schools as part of sex education?
To be honest, I don't. I think it's too, unless maybe you go to a super progressive, liberal private school, maybe in San Francisco. It's probably not going to be something that, not to say that it'll be necessarily explicit or pornographic, but I think we come from the area that sex, first and foremost is pleasurable, and pleasurable is kind of like a worthwhile
Hmm.
pursuit. And then that is, I will admit, that is my bias. So I think, that's kind of not necessarily what schools are looking for. But hopefully maybe, with streaming video and all these things that it can be complementary to a student's sex
Don't you think
education.
that may indicate a problem with the sex education system in our schools, though? I mean, the fact
Yes.
that you can make a documentary that is it's scientific. I mean, this isn't a porno that we're watching
Right.
here, and it's probably going to be much more scientific than something like Real Sex on HBO.
Right.
But it's like schools stay away from that, and they focus on like what you said, where it's like they only teach like abstinence, and
Oh,
this
yeah.
is the dangers of sex. I feel like that
Yeah.
is kind of counterintuitive.
It is, and it's just a lot of. I mean, the idea that sex is inherently shameful or sinful, or that goes back thousands of years, so it's a lot of it's a lot of. I mean, really, it's just a lot of cultural shame to kind of get to weight yourself out of it, and I think also the idea that and I have there's a lot of gray area and nuance to this idea, but the idea that kids at a certain age can experience sexual pleasure is still very taboo, and
Hmm.
it's hard to talk about, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and plus, it's like, by the time that kids are getting sex education in school, they already know everything. They already know
Yeah.
what's going on here.
And that is kind of my fear, like that your kids are given these messages through the media that validation is something you can easily get through sexual exploits and through being sexual, and yet at the same time they're given this message that it's something shameful. So there's this guy we're talking to, his name is TT Bomb, and he has a great line, when you remember your first orgasm, who could you talk to about it,
Right.
And you probably didn't go to the dinner table the next day and talk to your parents about your first orgasm. You probably didn't go to your teachers. If anything, you probably talked to your friends, and it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. So the shame we internalize, yet the messages and the images we're given, I think, are conflicting, and this is kind of my attempt to try to help people process these emotions and feelings and thoughts.
Well, I think that it's going to turn out great. Now, let's talk about some of the perks, some of the bonuses that you get for contributing to this
Yeah.
project. So maybe we could just highlight some of the ones that stick out to you.
Well, the one that there's the one that I really love. We had this one, it's like, I guess we're framing it as like a digital sexual guide for sexual conversations. Basically, it's the idea that I think it's our $40 perk, but basically, it's so hard to even talk to people about our sexual feelings and sexual thoughts, without feeling this kind of like embarrassment, just this humiliation a little bit, this scare you're going to be made fun of, or you're somehow not right, or you're going to be seen as not normal. And so we've talked to tons of sex educators and experts and biologists and all this stuff. We kind of compiled this guide about, easy kind of ways you can tiptoe into knowing about sex and talking about sex with your friends, and creating that safe space to have the conversations that you really want, the conversations that you kind of have always wondered about, but don't know how to broach. That's something that I think that'll be really fun. And then also, we have this package, I think we're branding it as 100 moments of love, but it's basically just your standard, we toilet your bag and we put 100 condoms in there, 100 bottles of lube, the things that maybe you might be embarrassed to actually buy, at your pharmacy. And we package that together, and we'll send you, a shirt and DVD and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that looks very cool. And also you have like the standard DVDs, and do you have like a streaming link to the?
Yeah. So we'll have a digital download, and exclusive for our Indiegogo pledgers. We will have your uncut, your uncensored version, basically, where we kind of we really will get down dirty, nothing blurred. Everyone is you're getting the actual information that you might want, someone else might want to censor if we put it online.
Very cool. So is this you're filming it now?
So we're doing preliminary interviews right now. Yeah. So we're kind of finding, we've got a lot of people kind of in the queue to actually talk to, and we're scouting, it's really finding those great characters that will really kind of highlight the information, highlight how people incorporate good science information, good sex information, science into their daily lives. So yeah, we're in that process right now.
And when do you expect to be wrapped up with the shooting?
Well, we'll see, depending how much we actually raise. The idea right now is to kind of craft a narrative where we start at Gay Pride in San Francisco and end at Folsom. I don't know, are you familiar with the Folsom Street Fair in San Francisco?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that's kind of like, we start with the idea of like this, guys, Gay Pride is kind of the continuance of the sexual revolution of the 60s and kind of that whole area, and ending with kind of the most extreme area when it comes to sex, or extreme probably in most people's eyes, of, kink, BDSM, leather and stuff, and see if you can kind of get a person to understand and be, if not comfortable, at least understanding of all different types of sexual expression.
It seems like you could really make this a series of documentaries. You have so much content that you can work with.
There is. That's probably the hardest part to kind of narrow the scope to fit something that's going to be 70, 80 minutes. But yeah, definitely there's, you can talk about at least the idea of being a sexual minority, I think could be a documentary in and of itself.
There's one last thing I wanted to ask you about. I watched the video that you have up on Indiegogo, and I noticed a little clip of a group of furries in this. Are you gonna?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask what your take was on these people, because I'm not. This is one thing that I can't really grasp.
To be honest, I am still in the process of grasping this idea. But I think that when it comes to fetish, for example, there's a lot of there's still not great research about why people have certain fetishes, but the idea is that from say, I don't know, about 5 to 10 is kind of like your body's when your brain is kind of a blank slate when it comes to where you find pleasure and the associations you make around pleasure, and then once you kind of make those, it's kind of set for life. So the idea is someone just had like a really I don't know. I mean, it might sound kind of odd, but someone just really loved Lion King so much. That's how they kind of get their idea of love, and they just kind of want to reenact that in whatever way they can. But to be honest, the furry thing is something that I'm going to a big furry party actually this Saturday. So well, I'll probably have a better idea of what that actually looks like and how would that make sense. But it's all, to me, this is also a way for me to kind of explore these areas that I probably would never under normal circumstances actually pursue, but it kind of gives me my little excuse to kind of look into these areas that maybe I was too scared to otherwise.
Yeah, 'cause the furry stuff seems fine, but once you get into fetishes that involve like other bodily fluids, that's the kind of that's the kind of stuff that I'd probably not be too interested in researching.
Yeah, there's definitely there's a lot to tease out, and at the very least, I would hope that we can get you to a point where maybe if you find it gross, that's fine, but realize that as long as people are being safe and consensual, that it's okay for them to do.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, thanks so much for taking some time to talk with us.
Oh yeah, thank you. This has been great.
Thanks again, Alex. Be sure to hit the link in the show notes and check out the Indiegogo page for a sexplanation. Let's talk about some of what we've been watching. Now, Kevin, I know that you had a pretty light week since you were on vacation.
I would like to point out one thing that I learned,
Uh-huh.
well, sort of came to my attention on vacation that I
Okay.
didn't really know about. And I don't know if you can really help me out here because you don't really have cable either, or any sort of like direct TV or anything of that nature.
I cut the cord.
Yeah, I had direct TV at my hotel, and it's come to my attention that the majority of what DirecTV offers, like about 50% of it, is just infomercials. There's whole channels dedicated to infomercials.
Maybe it was like because you were in a hotel.
I
Maybe
don't
there were more.
I don't
there were
think
more
so.
ad channels.
I
No.
don't think so. Like I'm going through the guide, like looking for something to watch because I'm thinking, oh, I got cable now. Let's find something to watch. And everything is just like Shark versus Dyson. Which one's the best vacuum cleaner? And I'm thinking that's there's a channel devoted to that.
Of course, it's the Shark v Dyson channel.
And then there's another channel about like juicers, and then another one about like fucking jewelry, and then another one about Invicta watches. And I'm like, honestly, 50% of the channels were just infomercials. When the fuck did that happen? And why do people put up with it?
I don't know. People probably don't even bother. I think that. Well, what time of day were you watching? Maybe that had something to do with it.
All times.
All times.
All times. It was
I don't
during
know,
the
man.
day, it was at night. It was just constantly. I don't, for whatever reason, it just really struck me and stuck with me. I
I think
couldn't
soon-
get past it.
I think more and more people are going to be getting rid of their cable and just moving to a la carte programming.
That's what I want more than anything in the world.
It's going to happen. It
Should.
will definitely happen. Well, I had a really big week. I saw a ton of stuff.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, I was getting caught up with a lot of the reviews that we had to write and stuff for the site. So, started the week off pretty bad with Bad Johnson.
And now, this is something that I wanted to talk to you about. What the fuck? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Well, I had
No,
I had to
what
review
do
it.
did you have to?
Well,
Did
they
did,
asked us to, and I
but
said, okay, sure.
okay. Now,
On-
I think back to the last episode that we had, and who kept like friended to death, kept asking you, and you were like,
Yeah.
no, not gonna do it.
Well,
Why didn't you
here's-
do the same for Bad Johnson?
I'll tell you why. And this is an honest answer. I knew I had a really strong feeling that it was going to be bad, and it's been quite a while since I just tore into a movie,
Okay,
and I kind of wanted the
Okay.
opportunity to just,
I got you.
rip a movie, a new one.
This is probably
And-
a good one. Probably a
Yeah,
good
and
one.
it was. It's just terrible. I mean, it's about a guy whose dick falls off and becomes a person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's horrible. With a movie like this, you just imagine it being pretty misogynistic. You think of it making out these men to be complete asshole womanizers, and it does, but it makes women look bad too, because throughout this whole movie, it's like every woman in this movie, with the exception of maybe one, they're just like flocking to these guys. Like, they're just like walking up to them on the street asking for blowjobs, And it's just, it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous movie, and it's not worth your time. It's not worth my breath to talk about it.
Wow.
But I do have a full review that you can read on the site. So
Wow.
don't even bother with Bad Johnson.
I watched, like you sort of alluded to it, I had like a light week, and I watched one movie. Well, two. But the one I watched that's not the feature review is the documentary Let the Fire Burn, which is, now this is very difficult. I think we've talked about this a couple times. This is a documentary that is completely captivating and enthralling, but at the same time, it's not a good documentary. And it's mostly because of the subject matter at hand is completely captivating and enthralling, but the documentary itself not so much. So this is directed by Jason Oster, who apparently is like an assistant professor at George Washington University. So this it really does feel like it's like a class project
Mm.
where it's completely made up of archival footage. Okay, so you have footage of all the news organizations that were covering what was happening. You have the footage of the investigative committee and sort of their hearings. And then you have the footage of one of two survivors of the incident who was, I can't remember what age he was. I would say like maybe
Do you
like,
want to tell us? Sorry, do you want to tell us what the incident
I,
was?
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to
Oh,
that.
okay.
I think he's like 11 or 12 years old. His name's Birdie Africa. So what this sort of revolves around is in Philadelphia in the 80s, there was this sort of shootout between an organization known as MOVE and the Philadelphia Police Department. Now, they came in, well, MOVE, there's so much to discuss because it's just complete insanity. It started in the 70s and they had a shootout, a cop got killed. It sort of sounds like the cop got killed by friendly fire, but they blamed it on the MOVE members, and 9 of the MOVE members went to jail. And they actually have on videotape one of the MOVE members getting like just beaten to shit on camera. And I don't know how. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, but the police got off on beating this man. And then the MOVE members ended up moving to another area of Philadelphia and just setting up shop in the craziest of ways where they built bunkers on top of the roof. Their house is boarded up. They have megaphones outside where they just air, just, it's ridiculous what they air throughout the day and the night. Just profanity laced tyrants or diatribes on who knows what. Just whatever they feel like shooting out there. And just, it's fucking insane. And in the 80s, the police come in, they evacuate everyone out. They're going to have this showdown with the MOVE members, and they think that they're just going to move them out of the house. They're just coming to evict them. That's it. But it ends up turning into a shootout. Who knows who shot first? And the police come up with this brilliant idea of dropping a bomb on the roof of the building. And these are row homes. So I don't know why the hell they thought that this was a good idea. So they drop the bomb. Of course, the fire spreads and just takes out like the entire block. The whole area just burns and burns and burns. And there's only 2 survivors. Like I said, there's one woman that survives and one small child that survives. And it's just all this archival footage put together, sort of condensed into telling this one story, but not really adding much to it. It's pure insanity. And it's really weird because, me and you, this happened, 2 years after we were born.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never heard anything about this.
Yeah, this is all new to me, so I didn't know about it.
I don't know what happened there. How did I never hear of this? And this was at a time where the news organizations filmed everything. So they have archival footage of the entire situation. Like it plays out on camera the entire day. Just the beginning portion of it of them evacuating people, and then the shootout, and then them dropping the bomb from a helicopter onto the roof, and then the fire, everything. Everything's there. It's
I'm gonna have to watch
it's
this.
complete.
Sounds...
It's complete insanity. And at one point, like before this shootout happened, people in this neighborhood are complaining about what's going on here because, as I was saying, they're broadcasting over their loudspeakers and everything throughout the day, throughout the night. It's driving people crazy. So the police come out, and there's one point where one of the MOVE members gets on the roof with a bag over his head and a shotgun, just hanging out. Police come out and just ask him to knock it off, and that's it. That's it. In the 80s, nothing happens outside of that. They just say, "Hey, can you stop it?" And then after a couple of hours, he goes back inside, and the police just go on their way. Imagine if that shit happened now.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't.
It's just, I couldn't believe it. There's just so much that just blows your mind in this movie. Highly recommend it. It's an unbelievable story. It's just complete insanity.
Now, how did you see this?
Mm. This is on Netflix Play Instant.
Okay. Very cool. I saw a movie called Evidence. This is horrible, this movie. Ugh. Okay, so it's like taking the worst parts of generic police procedurals and mixing them with generic found footage horror. It's like the two. Well, I like procedurals, so I don't want to say the two worst things, but it's so bad. So basically, it's about this group of like forensics people that recover these tapes, all these tapes from this crime scene where there's a bunch of dead bodies and some burned people, and the whole movie is them reviewing the footage and trying to figure out what happened, who killed these people, where that person's at, and trying to track him down and catch him.
Mm-hmm.
And so the movie shifts between like the actual found footage stuff, and then we pull back and it's them like reviewing it, like stop that. Like there'll be scenes where we're watching it through the found footage and they'll be like, wait, stop it right there. Rewind it a little bit. And then like it pulls back and then we see the crew in their little lab going over the tapes, the video.
Gotcha.
And it's just so poorly made. There's actually a couple really cool visual flourishes in it, but other than that, the dialogue is bad. Like there's just little things that kind of bothered me. Like for instance, there's a scene where the main guy, who's, I don't know the character's name, but he's the guy from True Blood. He's Bill Compton in True Blood. He's like, I need the card. Or he goes, I need the chip. Give me the chip. And he's referring to a memory card. And the whole time I'm like, dude, if you're this like expert CSI guy, you're not going to refer to a camera memory card as a chip, first of all. At least do a little bit of homework and get the terminology right. And of course, his character is this troubled detective that they gave him leave, but he comes back after this big crime, and he's
man.
He's like, I need this, and you need me. It's like one of those deals. And at the end, it's so ridiculous. So they find this like picture at the end, and it's like all messed up. The file was corrupted, and they need to try to figure out what the picture is. And it turns into like a mini game from a video game where they're looking at it, and he's like, wait, circle that, increase that DPI. Go there, increase that DPI. And it's like he was finding all these little things. It was just so stupid and unbelievable and ridiculous.
Oh, God.
And there was one scene also where it was this terrible red herring where we were made to think that it was one person that got killed, and it turned out to be a different person. And the whole time, everybody was like, okay, well, it was because of a ring on a finger. So we see a hand reaching out, and there's a ring on a finger, and it was this one girl's ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then she dies, and then we find out that, it wasn't really her.
Oh.
And the whole time the audience is thinking, well, why did the other girl have the ring? And then they show the scene later where she's like, here, take this.
Oh, Jesus.
Before the girl ran out of the building. And it's like, why would you just give that girl your engagement ring for no reason whatsoever?
Wow.
And it's just little things like that add up to a completely terrible movie.
This sounds awful.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Why is there a guy like a welder?
Because that's how they kill people. The killer's dressed up like a welder. And there is a kind of a cool scene where they weld someone's arm off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's some cool visual things, but overall it is just absolutely terrible. One that I did see that I can recommend is called Whitewash, and this was a surprise to me. This is kind of a dark comedy, a dark comedic thriller, I would say, and it stars Thomas Hayden Church, and it's basically he's the only character. There are a few other characters in it, but he's like the main character, and it's about this guy. He plays a snowplow truck driver, and one night he's boozing it up a little bit, and he runs over someone with his snowplow.
Oh, Jesus.
And so what he does is he hides the body in the snow, like far away from where it happened, And then because he's drunk, he ends up driving the plow into the woods, smashing into a tree and getting it stuck there. And rather than, he just freaks out and he decides to just live there. So he just lives in a snow plow in the middle of the forest.
Yeah.
And this takes place in Quebec. So it's, brutal cold in the middle of winter, snow everywhere. And he's just hiding out from the cops. And then, like, one day he decides to go find the body that he hid and then dispose of it properly. And he fucks that up. And it's such an interesting movie. It felt like a Coen Brothers
I was going to say,
movie
it
to me.
sounds like a Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah, it's definitely got that vibe because it's dark. There's a lot of serious moments. Like, the guy that he kills, it turns out we learn through flashbacks that he actually knew this guy. And he had sort of a friendship with this guy, and we learn a little bit more backstory about both characters, and it's just really interesting. The dialogue is really funny, and it's just very dry, and I think that it really complements Thomas Hayden Church's kind of deadpan humor that he has, and he was great in it. So this is on demand right now, so I would definitely check it out. It's called Whitewash.
Yeah.
Very surprising how much I liked this one.
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Like, it was one of these that I just thought was going to be kind of generic, but turned out to be really enjoyable. I saw a movie called Mr. Jones. It was a found footage horror movie.
Stop right there. You're done.
I don't need to say anything more.
Yep.
It's bad.
You're done.
The only thing I will say about it is that it has a really good poster. So check the poster. It's pretty cool. The only other one I want to talk about briefly is called Blood Glacier. This came out on video on demand this week. It was called The Station. I think when it played the festivals, it was called The Station.
Can you hit me with the original title real quick? Yeah. Yeah, do it.
Blut Glacier.
Yes.
Glacier.
Fantastic.
So this is it's a German Austrian film, and it's basically John Carpenter's The Thing. It's exactly the same. Pretty much a remake of The Thing. And I actually enjoyed it quite a bit up until the end. The end of this movie, the finale, is absolutely horrible and so stupid and baffling as to why they did what they did with it. It is so dumb. Like, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's so bad that ending alone was enough for me to be like, nope, not going to recommend this movie.
Wow. So it was all good up until the end.
It was fine. It wasn't anything great. It started off really good. Like, I was really intrigued at the beginning, but it doesn't really, it's kind of slow paced, and I don't mean that in a good way.
Okay.
With a movie like this, you kind of want it to pick up the pace a bit, and it just didn't really go anywhere. I thought that there was gonna be some movement as far as, what these creatures were and what was happening and the rate at which they were mutating and stuff like that, but it just doesn't really go anywhere. So the plot was a little lackluster. Most of the special effects are practical, so I appreciated that. Some of them are quite good, some of them were horrible. So I guess, I don't know. I can't recommend it, actually.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
I can't. The end alone, I'm telling you, it is so stupid. And I think I did read some other reviews where people commented on the terrible ending. So I know that I'm not the only one that was really bothered by it, but that's really all I watched. One other quick thing, I keep forgetting to mention this because it's not on Letterboxd, and I keep trying to remind myself. ESPN has a 30 for 30 series that's coming out right now called Soccer Stories.
Yeah.
And the first one that came out a few weeks ago was called Hillsborough, and it's about the have you heard of what happened in Hillsborough? The Hillsborough tragedy, I think that's what they call it.
I'm not quite sure.
So basically, there were like almost 100 people killed because of what happened was they let too many people into the stadium, and they got smashed. And there was this huge cover-up because of it. They tried to blame it on people being rowdy, and they tried to blame it on alcohol. They said that people were drunk and like crushing each other, and it turned into this like huge conspiracy as to how these people were killed. I think it was like 96 people that got killed.
I think I do remember reading about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. So, very, very well-made documentary. It's actually a feature-length documentary, so it's like an hour and a half long. The other 30 for 30 soccer stories, I think 2 other ones have been released so far. Those are actually only half an hour apiece, and they're not quite as good. They're not as in-depth, but
yeah.
One of them is Maradona 86, and that one wasn't very interesting to me because I know about Maradona, so wasn't too into that one. I don't like Maradona, so he's kind of a prick.
Yeah, a little bit.
And the other one was about Chile and the unrest that was happening there. So very, very interesting. So highly recommend it, especially if you're into soccer. They're quite well made. So that's all I got. Let's go ahead and talk about The Sacrament. This is directed by Ty West. Now, I wrote a review for this already, so we'll start with you now. Before I get your thoughts, I'm gonna throw out a prediction.
All right.
By the way, this stars Amy Seimetz, Joe Swanberg, Caitlin Scheel, AJ Bowen, Gene Jones, and Ken Tucker Audley. And I'm gonna say that you hated this movie.
I'm actually very conflicted on how I feel about this movie.
You know what? I'm very conflicted too, and I've actually changed the score on my review several times and on Letterboxd. So I'm very conflicted too. But go ahead. Let's start with your thoughts.
These are the 2 things that I keep sort of oscillating between. Number one, I have that this is completely unoriginal. It's just Jim Jones with some minor tweaks. Just really minor tweaks. I mean, if you look at the Jim Jones story, it follows it pretty well. So that sort of pisses me off. But then on the other hand, I'm like, okay, if it is sort of like a reinterpretation or sort of like based on true story type deal, Jim Jones, even though they don't mention it, I think would make it a little bit better if they threw that in there.
If they acknowledged it.
Yeah, if they acknowledged it a little bit. And I'm thinking, if it's for sort of like a younger audience that really doesn't know about Jim Jones, it's not half bad. The execution of it is actually pretty good. And the way that they, like the framing device that they use for this found footage, I thought was great. And it actually works very well. There's only one portion of this film where I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Which usually when you come to found footage films, it's one after another where you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense either. What the fuck is this about? But with The Sacrament, there was only one point where I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Well, I think I know. Well, there was one point for me as well where I was like, okay, that I'm not buying that. And it was it's not a spoiler or anything. It was towards the end, before the big event occurred, he was talking to his people, and at that point all the other Vice people were not there, and it was just Amy Seimetz filming, and they were doing like cut after cut after cut, and it was all different camera angles, and I was like, okay, that completely pulled me out of it.
Well, for me was sort of a continuation of that is at the end when Father is talking to the 2 Vice people, and there's an apparent camera angle, but when they show Swanberg's camera angle, the camera's not there.
Oh, see, I didn't even pick up on that. I thought that the camera was just sitting on like a table, the other camera.
And then Swanberg and Bowen sort of rush out of there, and I'm thinking, well, who grabbed the tape? If they cut this together, how?
Oh, that's even better.
Like, who got the tape? No one grabbed a tape on their way out.
Maybe they did, and we just didn't see it. Well, that was the other thing. Like, here's the thing. So it's supposed to be Vice documentary. They really try to make it look like a Vice documentary. They use the same fonts and things like that. And I would suspect that that's why they never mention Jim Jones, because they're trying to, present the illusion that this is an actual documentary that's not related to that.
It does look like the concept was like, okay, what if Vice was around when Jim Jones was around?
Yeah.
This is maybe how it would happen. Because what happens to the Vice people when they get there is essentially what happens to Congressman Ryan when he went and visited Jim Jones. It's pretty much the same thing, except for
well, first of all, almost
they changed a little bit of it.
Well, in real life, the Jim Jones thing, there was almost 1,000 people in that.
It was
in this,
much
there's only 164, 65, or whatever. So, in actuality, the Jim Jones thing was much more horrific and crazy.
But even when the father's doing his sort of speech at the end, where Seismith is, filming it and everything, he says a lot of the things that actually, Jim Jones said, because there's the audio recordings from when they were doing, drinking their Kool-Aid and everything. A lot of that was sort of tied into what father was saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, even down to like him taking their passports and making sure that they showed that and not letting them leave, and the location. I mean, it was all clearly this is modeled exactly after that. But
with Congressman Ryan, when he was there, he was with like I think it was NBC. He was with the NBC camera crew, and they tried to kill Ryan, and it was thwarted. And he actually left with some people that wanted to leave, and Jones at that time didn't stop them from leaving. So that's like the little twist that they've sort of put on it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much Jim Jones.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that too, because one of the Vice people, it's the reason that they're going there to begin with is that his sister is a part of this.
Yeah.
Too, and so there's some added, theatrical type things there. There was a couple other like things that made me, other than the fact that I knew all these people are actors, there's a couple other things that kind of pulled me out of the whole illusion. I don't think that in a real Vice documentary they would include footage of the two people talking about where to get B-roll from. Like that, just that little conversation between Ken Tucker Audley and Joe Swanberg. I was like, nope, they wouldn't include that, because why would they ever include that?
Why would you?
That was just for our benefit. But I understand they did that for our benefit so that we would understand how they're capturing two different camera angles. I get it. Like Ty West's other films, this has kind of a slow progression. I would consider it a slow burn. I don't even know if I would consider this a horror movie. I mean, in the broadest sense, I think it is. But it's kind of a different kind of horror movie. It's the kind of horror movie that it kind of just gets under your skin, It doesn't scare you like a jump scare, but it's just disturbing, especially when things ramp up at the end. There were some genuinely shocking moments in this movie, at least I thought.
And that's the problem that I have, is if I get past the uncreativity of it, that it's just Jim Jones. If I just look at it as a film, which is really hard to get past that Jim Jones thing. But when I look at it as just a film, I'm like, the effects are good. The world building is good because, it feels like they're in an undisclosed area. Everything looks real, all the architecture, the little houses they build, and the pavilion and everything, and the way that it plays out. Everything looks great. And in all actuality, I mentioned it before, I only have one qualm with the found footage, when usually when we talk about found footage, we just have a laundry list of things. So I only have one. So when it comes to that, it's not that bad of a film. But I do have to think that I keep coming back to, I saw the Powers Booth version of the story of Jim Jones, which is immensely better. Immensely. And that was back in 1980. So I'm thinking, like, if you want to watch Jim Jones, watch Powers Booth. Because that's the only way I really see Powers Booth. And he was so convincing in that role that he scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Powers Booth scares the shit out of me because I think he's Jim Jones.
I also feel that. Did you watch it in school? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's where I saw
yeah,
it.
and that's another thing that I want to discuss. Why the fuck did we watch this in school?
I don't
What
know.
what class did we learn this in? Why
I
were
don't
we
know, but I
learning?
distinctly remember watching it in school.
Why were we learning about the People's Temple and Jim Jones? What class would we learn that in? And
I don't
why?
know.
Why?
Yeah, I have no idea. But I think that we should talk about Gene Jones in this movie because I thought he was great as the father.
Yes.
I thought that he was. I mean, he's a pretty prominent character actor. You've probably seen him in a million things, but he was. I thought he was fantastic in this movie. I thought that he was the strongest part of this
Oh yeah,
movie.
without a doubt.
And I thought that a lot of it was just like Caitlin Sheil. She had nothing to do in this movie. I mean, clearly it was just Ty West adding his buds, adding his
Yeah.
buddies,
Yeah, she was just helping out.
which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. I didn't necessarily think that any of the other performances were terrible or anything like that. And I thought that at the end, I was genuinely in suspense the whole time. I thought that there were some really crazy things that happened towards the end, and I think that Ty West has a really good ability to show kind of suspense and dread.
But again, I think, like you're saying, like the ending and everything, with me knowing Jim Jones, knowing the whole story, I knew it was going to happen. I knew from the outset,
Oh,
like
sure.
right off
Yeah.
the bat. I was like, I know exactly how this film's going to play out. I know what's going to happen at the end. None of this is going to surprise me. And none of it did. But the only thing that I could think of at the end was Swanberg. You got to move a little bit quicker. Fucking speed it up, buddy. He's just like meandering around. I'm like, people are dying because you're just fucking pussyfooting. Get your shit together.
Pussyfooting around, Swanberg.
Get your shit together, Swanberg. You kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it really does come down to getting over the whole Jim Jones thing because I knew it going into it. So it was easy for me to look past it because I had read about this movie previously. I knew that it was modeled after Jonestown, so it was not a surprise to me at all.
Yeah.
And I knew what was going to happen at the end, as most people do going into this movie. That's not what really shocked me. I didn't find that stuff, but there were just other small things that I don't want to give away, but there were some other things that happened in the movie that I was actually pretty surprised to see.
There was a couple other ones. One other thing that I just remembered that sort of bothered me is scene towards the end where Swanberg is sort of hiding from one of the militia members, and I'm thinking, if I'm that militia member and I walk into that,
I said that
easily see.
When I was watching this, I audibly said that while I was watching. It was like, okay, you're in like a 5 foot by 5 foot hut. There's nowhere to hide. All that's in there is a bed. That's it. Like, of course you're gonna look under the bed if you're trying to find someone.
And I mean,
hiding.
you wouldn't even have to look like because you come up the stairs. So as soon as you open up the door and come up the stairs, you're gonna see him right there
Yeah, he's just gonna be laying there
with his giant fucking camera.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, as far as Ty West's films go, I still liked The Innkeepers and House of the Devil better than this one.
Yes, much
Like
better.
I thought that both of those movies were more original, just doing more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
More for.
that's what I'm saying. Like the execution's good, but there's just no originality here.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You know,
That's why I've been kind of waffling over how to review this because, like, in one sense I'll go back and think about it and be like, okay, yeah, it was a solid thriller, but then I go back and think about it some more and I'm like, well, but there really wasn't anything to it, you know. So it's been really difficult for me to kind of go. Plus, I'm like a Ty West fanboy, so I don't want that to be clouding my judgment and how I think about this movie either.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of tough.
It's it's a tough one for me as well. I'm gonna go out and say that since I know about Jim Jones, that this is completely unoriginal, but the execution's good. Someone put it like in the middle
But
as like a five, like in the
but
middle like a five.
I think that it just depends on like what his true intentions were with this movie. You know, like maybe he was trying to do maybe he was really trying to tell the Jim Jones story and just do it in a different way. You know, like I don't know.
Which I think
I don't know.
a lot of it would have, for me, it would have been a bit better if he just threw that out there. Like,
You know,
hey,
it'd be
it's based on the Jim Jones massacre. Okay, Jonestown Massacre, this is what it's based on.
it'd be awesome though if he did do it like that and they just made it the Jonestown Massacre and make it look like it's a VHS, you know, 80s style documentary.
There we go.
See,
I could get on board with
feel
that.
I feel like that would have worked a lot better. Maybe he did want to make a Jonestown movie and he for whatever reason wasn't allowed to.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, you're giving it a 5. I'm gonna say I'll say 6.5. 6.5.
I mean, execution's great, but
It's not a bad movie.
I would definitely, I would recommend it. Okay.
Yeah,
It
I would
it
recommend
just
checking.
it just bothers me the how unoriginal it is.
Yeah, I think if you can get past the Jim Jones stuff, I think
You'll
that
be fine.
You'll find yourself in a genuinely entertaining, sometimes terrifying thriller that is pretty rewarding in the end. So there you have it. The Sacrament is on video on demand right now. All right, let's talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Ernie, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I am doing good, sir. How are you?
Doing pretty well. We have a synopsis here. Peter Parker runs the gauntlet as the mysterious company Oscorp sends up a slew of supervillains against him, impacting his life. This is directed by Mark Webb, stars Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Jamie Foxx, Dane DeHaan, Felicity Jones is in there, Paul Giamatti, Sally Field, a bunch of other people. Now, I wrote a review for the site. It's up now, so you can check that out. So we'll start with you, Ernie. What did you think of The Amazing Spider-Man 2?
Far from amazing. Far from amazing. When I saw the trailers and I heard about the story, I'm like, okay, this could be cool. But then, as it's so hard to separate the future from the present, especially in the universe that Marvel's and the cinematic universe Marvel's built up, that everybody else is trying to play catch up, and even including the non-produced Marvel productions from Sony and Fox.
Mm-hmm.
So it was difficult to separate that from the movie that is out now, Spider-Man 2, and not keep thinking about that. And when you look at it that way, you realize the reason why this movie wasn't good enough. Unless it's not horrible, it's decent, but as fans of the comic book movies, that you should expect something from everyone on the Marvel level. And when you got Marvel name like branded on this thing, you're like, okay, I expect something on the level of the other films. I'm not expecting a carbon copy, but at least I should get something that with decent drama, some humor, great action sequences, solid acting. But this one only delivers maybe half of that.
Mm-hmm.
And my main problem was the reason why I hated Spider-Man 3 was too many villains, too many subplots.
Yep.
Trying to cram way too much into one movie. I mean, watching this movie, I'm like, this could have been part 2 and part 3 of the trilogy, of the first trilogy. Then go do what you wanted to do. But no, we want to rush in there, get all these half of the Sinister, not to spoil anything, but the Sinister Six is the team up of the villains that's in the near future, and you're introduced to half of them in this movie, where instead of doling out each villain with a new movie so you get to know who these villains are, here you maybe spend 10 minutes with one, 2 minutes with another.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get one who could have been a decent villain, but not enough time is spent to flesh his character out. And he's the primary villain, Electro. But I'm watching, it's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, instead of eagerly anticipating Spider-Man 3, 4, and Sinister Six, I'm I'm like kind of dreading like how much they're gonna screw this up.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. I had a lot of problems with this movie. I'm not going to say it was horrible. There were several moments that were fun. I had fun with certain aspects of this movie, but it was just too much. There was too much going on in this movie. It felt so scattered, and it would have been so much better if they got rid of the Rhino stuff, because I don't think it's a big spoiler or anything, but Rhino's in it for the first 5 minutes of the movie and the last 2 minutes of the movie, and that's it. And it was completely unnecessary. Now, I will say that action sequence at the beginning was awesome. It was probably the best part of the movie, I thought, because it was exactly what I would want in a Spider-Man movie. I don't want these giant, huge set pieces that like the entire city's being destroyed. I just felt that it was entirely too crammed in with stuff, and they didn't have enough time to spend on any one thing to really flesh it out. Like the whole Harry Osborn, Green Goblin thing with Dane DeHaan, that in and of itself could have been a movie.
Yeah.
Like I liked the story between Peter Parker, the relationship between Peter Parker and Dane DeHaan, and it felt like everything with his storyline was so completely rushed, and none of it even made sense to me because, early in the movie, we see him meeting his father, played by Chris Cooper, who immediately, and I don't think this is a huge spoiler either, but he's sick, he has a disease, he tells his son, you have the disease too, and it's like immediately he's dying because of it. It's like it doesn't. It's like everything felt like it was on fast forward in this movie. They didn't spend enough time on anything to really fully develop it.
Yeah,
and I thought that some of it was just so ridiculously heavy-handed with the lead up. Everything in this movie felt like a lead up to the Sinister Six.
Yeah, I mean,
or maybe Spider-Man 3, but
3 or 4 or 5 or wherever they're going. But it's like again, it's like an unfair comparison. It's like look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you know Avengers 2 is coming, but you still want to see like Cap 2, Thor 2, Guardians,
right?
Not because it's like it's Avengers 2, but because it's like one, these are the solo films, but there might be a little caveat in there to set up the next Avengers. So it's like, okay, cool, but you're not saying it's like, oh, I'm only seeing this just to set up Avengers 2. Whereas here you come see Spider-Man 2. I'm like, yeah, I want to see Spider-Man go up against Electro. I wanted to see something to that effect. I'm like, oh, that's done. Okay, wait a minute. There's like 45 minutes left. Aren't there like 2 more villains?
Yeah, it was so ridiculous to me how heavy-handed all that stuff was. And like with Marvel, looking at Marvel Studios stuff, they do it right. They say, okay, we're gonna put out a Thor movie, we're gonna put out a Captain America movie, and these are self-contained stories. They fit into the overarching, big scope of the whole universe, but they act as self-contained movies.
Yeah.
And they spend the time to set up all of these specific characters, not just the heroes, but the villains too. So in this movie, we have 3 origin stories packed in.
Right.
And that's not even including
that barely
even
service the villains.
Yeah. And not only that, but we have this whole subplot with Peter's father and the things that he was working on, and him uncovering what his destiny is and all that stuff, which is, to me, almost negates the entire character of Spider-Man. Spider-Man's supposed to be just a normal, everyday dude. He's supposed to be someone that we can relate to. He's a student, he has a job, and he's just a normal guy that's been put in this kind of extraordinary circumstance. But when they shoehorn in this whole pointless thing about, oh, you were destined to do this and that, it doesn't feel like it's Spider-Man. It feels like it's sullying the character somehow.
Right.
And I don't understand why any of that stuff is in there, because it's pointless.
It
Like, what's the point of all that?
Yeah, it's kind of like again, go back to Spider-Man 3. Movie came out like a decade or so ago, so if there's spoilers in there, sorry, don't even bother seeing it anyway. But it's just like with Spider-Man 3, where they ripped out and tossed away the emotional core of the first two Spider-Mans by saying, "Oh, by the way, you got the wrong guy."
Yeah,
And then they just throw in
exactly.
Sandman in there for like there was no reason for Sandman to exist in that movie, nor was that subplot necessary, from what I remember. But here it's just like Rhino is not giving anything away, is simply a tease. Goblin doesn't even is basically handled like Hobgoblin, where when Harry
Hmm.
finally appears in Spider-Man 3 as Hobgoblin, it's only for like 5-10 minutes, and the thing that the first two Spider-Mans, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, got perfectly was that the villains were, especially two, the villains were sympathetic people until they turned bad. And
Right,
but
and
here you barely get that with Max Dillon, Jamie Foxx, and you don't get any of. It's basically like false sympathy
right,
Harry
and
Osborn.
that's the other big thing. It's like, what are the motivations of these villains? I mean, the whole, like, what was Electro's goal? What was he looking to do? Just kill everybody? Just turn off all the power? And why? Because at the beginning he was like obsessed with Spider-Man. He loves Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden he just takes a 180 and hates him and wants to kill him and kill everybody in the city. Like, I didn't understand. I didn't feel like their motivations were clearly defined. It just, that felt really underdeveloped to me.
Yeah, they would have had that
I was
problem
like,
if
why is he
they
doing
took their
this?
time. But they're like, okay, our villain's Electro. Let's develop that and move on to the next movie. Spider-Man 3 will be okay. We introduce Green Goblin, and then Rhino. I would have even been. It
It's,
would have been fine when Rhino was a tease at the end of 3. At least then that's what's coming for 4. I'm like, but
well, like, just like what I think that they should have done is just put the Rhino stuff in as a post-credit stinger. That would have been perfect. And there was no stinger
yeah,
in this
well,
movie.
there was something there, and it's more of a stinker than a stinger. But I
Well,
guess
yeah,
you
I
could
think
get
we can.
out of that.
I think we can.
Would say that for
Yeah,
spoilers.
we're gonna get into
or say that-
spoilers.
yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get into spoilers, but I don't think it's a spoiler. It's a clip. All it is a clip of X-Men, Days of Future Past, which has nothing to do with
which
Spider-Man.
caused nothing but confusion. And I'm watching this, I'm like thinking, wait a minute, is Oscorp stuff like now involved in the mutations? I'm like, what's going on here? And then I wanted to throw something at the screen because once it fades to black, you see the logos and a copyright credit. I'm like, what? You just put there was already an X-Men trailer before the movie even started. Why are you putting another
Yeah,
trailer in here?
exactly.
But
I mean, that was, to me, that was just shameless.
Yeah.
Just a shameless plug for.
well, actually, it was a
Eh.
contractual thing that kind of like just felt like bogus.
Yeah, I think it was like a cross marketing thing between
Yeah, Fox and
Sony, but to me that was just. And then I waited till
the
the
very
very
end, expecting
end,
something else. But nope,
expecting something else, and there was nothing. I was like, oh, come on. You make me wait through all these credits for nothing
Yeah.
in a movie that I didn't even like. I mean, it's my fault, but
Yeah.
still.
But,
There were a couple things that I did like about this movie. I don't want to just, shit all over it and make it sound like it's terrible. Some of the action sequences I did like. I liked I felt like, just due to the advances in technology, the way that Spider-Man moved and the way that he looks in this movie, I think was better than ever before.
Mhm.
And I do like Mark Webb's directing style. I don't know if it has anything to do with Mark Webb or just, Sony, but I like all the relationship stuff that they put in this movie. I think that Mark Webb is known for doing well with characters and handling relationships.
mhm.
And I liked all the stuff between like Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, and then when he was having his moment with Aunt May. But I felt like that stuff was not enough to save the movie for me.
All right. I like the action sequences, especially the Electro stuff was great. And the relationships, yeah, the movie was more just Gwen and Peter, that would have been fine too. And I mean, overall, the acting was good, and some people didn't really have much to do with anything, and they did what they could with it. The acting overall was good. It was just too bad that the movie, it basically doesn't live up to what they're delivering.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think Sally Field is great in this. I think Andrew Garfield is a really good choice for Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I think I love that's why I like that opening sequence so much, because it really felt like it felt like a comic book. It really did. Like, it was goofy. He was, throwing jokes out there. It was small scale. It wasn't like this giant city destroying thing. And it was just, Spider-Man fighting the bad guys, doing it in a really clever way. And that was what I wanted more of in this.
But I guess
I'm sick of cities being destroyed. Like, I'm just tired of it, man. Like, it's like everything has to be this huge, scope thing, and it's like, just let's scale it down. Let's just scale it down a little bit. And I felt like Electro was completely overpowered in this. Like, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm not 100% on the comic books, but I'm pretty sure that he couldn't turn himself into lightning in the comic books.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I guess the other things were that I'm assuming that when they made this film and the arcs that they chose, they were under the impression that fans knew what was going on. But I'm not saying I'm not a fan, but I know of Spider-Man. I know what's been going on. But so many things go on that I find myself using other previous films to fill in the blanks, which is unfortunately, like with the Harry Osborn thing. I'm like, was Osborn introduced in the first movie? Then I'm starting to pull information from the other Spider-Man movies. I'm like, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense. And then again, I couldn't tell you everything about Electro's powers or the whole, like, apparently there were some characters who actually become more prominent villains or characters later on, but I didn't know that.
Well, I know that Felicity Jones, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna do anything with her character, but I know that she becomes a character later on.
Yeah, I mean, I know they lingered on her for a little bit. They made her kind of a little untrustworthy, but I'm like, all right, whatever. But I had no idea there was actually more to her than what we know. But
yeah,
maybe that was their intention. I don't know.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about some spoilers, because there are a couple big things that we can get into here. So
I guess before we get to that, I have to say something about Hans Zimmer's score.
Oh yes,
Hated it.
I absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because there was a point where I leaned over to my girlfriend in our screening and I was like, "What is going on with this music?" I thought it was terrible. Like, I didn't think it fit at all. It almost felt like it was supposed to be like the Superman theme or something, but it didn't. Like, none of it fit, and I hated. And I don't know if this was Hans Zimmer. It might have been, because I know Pharrell Williams did some of the music too. All the electro stuff, because there were times when it sounded like somebody was whispering in his head, like it was his thoughts or something, but I couldn't tell if it was his thoughts or if it was the music that was playing.
Right. I guess the main thing that bothered me most was in the big first set piece where Electro takes over Times Square and he's in all villain mode, and I'm like, the music that's underscoring, I'm like, I'm watching like, this is a Woody Allen movie?
Yeah, I didn't think
this
the
sounds
music...
like Woody Allen. This is like he's supposed to be villainous and ominous, but like I'm starting to kind of laugh at that. I'm like, that's supposed to go.
I did not think that the music fit at all. It felt really weird and out of place. But yeah, so I don't know what they were going for with that. And I like how, like, anytime there was like a big electro fight, it was all like dubstep. Had this kind of dubstep electronic feel to it, and I didn't think that any of that stuff worked. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some spoilers. So we'll put the time code in the show notes. So if you haven't seen it yet, you don't want to be spoiled, just go ahead and skip over this part. The big thing, Gwen Stacy dies. That's like the big reveal. I didn't think that they were actually going to go through with it. Like, even though with her whole graduation speech kind of, was some pretty heavy foreshadowing, I still didn't think that they were actually going to go through with it. Now I know that she dies in the comic books as well,
Right.
through a similar situation. But I was actually pretty surprised that they killed her off.
Yeah, again, that would have been a far better way to cap a trilogy than just to cap the movie. Because basically, when she died, I wasn't like shocked. I wasn't saddened. I was like, whoa, okay, move on. But like I was like thinking how they developed things with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 1 and 2. When 2 ended and it concluded with a close-up on Mary Jane, but it kind of had like a strange undertone and underscore that kind of made it kind of ominous. Like, is she gonna die in 3?
Yeah.
It's like you're thinking it's like she finally accepted who he is, and it's like, and there's something's a little off here. Like they might be killing her off in 3, but they didn't, and they thought they might. And if they did, that would have been sad. But here, this is only the second movie that we only know who Gwen Stacy is, and suddenly she's dead. I'm like, okay, all right, because I barely remember going in. I didn't see a Spider-Man again. I probably should have, and I barely remembered a lot of details of the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I only had what 2 was giving me to go on, and then suddenly she's dead. I was like, and again, I couldn't help but feel that the only reason Green Goblin existed in this movie is as a plot point to kill Gwen Stacy. Instead of like if they took a whole movie to build up to that moment,
right?
You're like, oh shit.
Right. It seems like, because clearly the villain in this is supposed to be Electro. Like, that's the big villain. They spend the most time with him. They spend the most time with his backstory and his origin. And so why not? Because we already know that they have up to part 4 planned, right?
Yep.
So why not dedicate part 3 to Dane DeHaan becoming Green Goblin or Hobgoblin? It says Green Goblin on IMDb, but I know that Harry Osborn was supposed to be Hobgoblin, but whatever. Right. Have him be the Goblin and have Gwen Stacy die in part 3. That way they can spend more time on establishing the relationship between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, establishing the relationship between Peter Parker and Harry Osborn, and then that way everything would be so much more impactful when it does happen, both when Gwen Stacy dies and when Dane DeHaan turns evil. Because in this, there was just no... I agree with you. I didn't feel sad. I wasn't like emotionally invested in the fact that she just died. And the same goes for Dane DeHaan. When he turns into the Goblin, I didn't care. Like, because I barely knew this guy. And I think that if they took the time to flesh out these characters more, and rather than trying to just cram everything into one freaking movie, I think it would have worked out a lot better for them in the end. And then in the 4th one, then they can have, Spider-Man dealing with that loss and how that's going to be. Because at the end of this one, see, that's another thing. They could have spent a lot of time on him getting over the loss of Gwen Stacy, and
instead that's like a 2-minute montage to show 5 seasons go by or something like that.
And by the way, I thought that scene was great, like of him standing there at the grave. Like, I thought that was really effective. But at the end of the movie, he's back in it. He's back as Spider-Man. So we're not going to see any of that, like, time with him trying to get back into the swing of things, so to speak, and get over this loss. Because by the end of the movie, he's worked through all that stuff. So, and at the end, they show him, squaring off against Rhino for 2 seconds before they cut it off. Which I thought that the Rhino suit was stupid. It looked really weird. Like, it looked very CG. Like, seeing Paul Giamatti inside of it, it just looked like it didn't fit right.
Yeah,
I didn't like the Rhino suit at all. But also, so like we said before, this whole movie feels like it's a big lead up to Sinister Six, and there's that scene at Oscorp where they show like the Doc Ock arms and what's the other one? Vulture.
They showed Vulture, Rhino, and don't think they showed anybody else. I guess probably wouldn't have because we already saw those. Well, oh wait, Rhino was the third, so I guess there's still a sixth one out there.
Well, who was the guy who approached Dane DeHaan that was wearing like the fedora?
I have no idea who that guy is.
I think it was.
I think they meant that he said his name, but I didn't hear it.
Isn't there? What is the guy's name?
Or I think they said he was in the first one too. So
because there is the other villain that's in the Sinister Six. It's never been in a Spider-Man movie. I can't remember his name. I know what he looks like. He wears like a dome on his head.
Oh, Mysterio.
Mysterio? Yeah. I'm wondering maybe that guy was Mysterio? Is that possible?
Maybe. Maybe they'll just make him Mysterio. It's like, oh yeah, that fits. Let's do it that way.
You know, we can get a nice origin story of him at some point.
For 5 minutes.
I'm wondering, and then they're also doing, because I thought the Stinger was going to have Venom in it. That's what I thought. That's why I waited, because I was like, oh man, they're going to have Venom in here at some point.
Yeah, and that's another thing we've been concerned with is like if he does show up in Spider-Man, are they going to give him be the focus of the film, or are they going to like throw in more villains in there just to set up the eventual Sinister Six movie?
Well, that was the biggest problem I had with Spider-Man 3 was that Venom felt like he took such a backseat to everything else in that movie, and it pissed me off because I love the character Venom. I think Venom's just such a badass character. But I did read that Venom, they're getting a Sinister Six movie, but Venom is also getting his own spin-off movie. So who knows how they're going to fit all that in?
Yeah,
I'm sure that because what comes out first? Spider-Man 3 comes out first, right? Before Sinister Six.
I guess 3, 4, and 5, I believe, already have release dates, but they still haven't announced any kind of release date for the spinoffs.
See, it's weird though because nothing about this movie except maybe the Rhino fight at the end felt like a lead up to Spider-Man 3, but everything felt like a lead up to Sinister
Six. Yeah. I also thought that the final scene setting up the Sinister Six before Rhino arrives, I thought that was just kind of heavy-handed.
That could have been a stinger. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, just put that stuff at the end because I feel like when you put that stuff in, it cheapens the film. Because it makes it feel like everything that I just watched for like the last 2.5 hours was just a lead up to the next one. And that's like the biggest problem I had with this movie is that nothing felt like an actual self-contained story. It just felt like it was a 2.5 hour long stinger.
Yeah, it's like unlike the Two Towers or Desolation of Smaug. It's like it has no conclusion, but this is only the middle part of a grander novel. But this one was just almost like cobbled together. Just like, okay, what else can we do?
I don't necessarily know that they have an idea of what's going on. Like with Marvel Studios, everything feels like it's purposeful. Like everything feels like they know what they're doing, where they're going. They had the whole thing mapped out, for the next decade.
Yeah.
But with Spider-Man, it feels like they're just kind of winging it. They're like, you know what? Okay, wait, this didn't work. Because Mary Jane was supposed to be in this one too, and they cut her out completely. So I would assume that she's going to be in the next one, and she'll be the new love interest. So I would assume that with Spider-Man 3, he's going to meet Mary Jane, and there's going to be that whole new romance.
Yeah, and I guess their next big problem is the fact that Garfield says he only has one film left in his contract, and it sounds like he doesn't want to do it anymore after that. What do they do then? Or are they prepared for that? Are they just going to recast? Are they going to follow the comic, kill him off, and bring in a new Spider-Man or something? What are they going to do? It's like, how much is that going to screw up the future?
To me, the Mark Webb Spider-Man series just feels like a cash grab. Like there's some mindless fun to be had for sure, but the fact that they rebooted Spider-Man just 2 years ago made me. It just left a bad taste in my mouth because I knew that it was just Sony making sure that they hold on to the rights.
Right.
And the whole time I'm watching it, I'm thinking about what Spider-Man could be if it was under the control of Marvel Studios and how much cooler it'd be. And it's like, okay, well, instead I'm getting this, And it's like, I would rather not have a Spider-Man movie in the theater at all and just let the rights go back to Marvel Studios, and then let them fix this.
Right. I remember commenting with friends and joking. It was like after Marvel sees it, it's like, okay, here's $1 billion. Just give us our franchises back.
I know, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they did do that at some point, because they got to keep adding characters into the Marvel Studios universe. They're gonna have to replace some of these characters that are either gonna die or leave. So at some point, I feel like it has to go back to them. They have to retain the rights. Because I mean, how cool would it be to have Spider-Man in the Avengers? Like it's got to happen at some point.
But I guess after this movie, there's just no way that the two universes can mix.
Well, they'll have to just reboot it. I feel like if Marvel Studios got a hold of Spider-Man, they wouldn't have to reboot it again. I feel like that they could just throw him into either his own movie and just have it be completely separate, because he's been established. I mean, we know Spider-Man's origin. We don't need another origin. I would argue that we didn't need an origin for the first Amazing Spider-Man. And that was another thing. Like, do we need another origin story? Like, I'm pretty sure every single person in the country knows the origin of Spider-Man at this point.
Right.
And it's just sad, because I love Spider-Man. I read the comics growing up, huge fan. I was a huge fan of the Fox TV show, the cartoon, the one that was in the 90s. Huge fan of that. So to see them just kind of fumble this is it's really a shame.
Yep.
Do you want to do any other spoilers for Spider-Man 2?
Can't really think of anything else.
I mean, supposedly,
other than that there are some scenes that you see in the trailer that aren't even in the movie.
Well, yeah, going back to the trailer, first, like you said at the beginning, I thought that this movie didn't look good from the very beginning. Like, all the trailers that were released didn't do it for me. I was like, special effects don't look very good. It just doesn't look good at all. But then the very last trailer that they put out, the last theatrical trailer, had me excited for it. I was like, oh, okay. If they only started with that trailer, maybe I'd be more excited about this movie. But what were some of the things that were included in the trailer? Because I don't remember.
There was a exchange between Harry and Norman Osborn where he was saying well, what about Peter Parker? And then Osborn says well, not everybody gets a happy ending. I'm like, that's why I was confused as to when that scene was in the movie. I'm like, well, would he be bringing up Peter Parker at this point? He hasn't even met Peter Parker yet. I'm like, oh, I guess that must have been an alternate take.
Yeah.
And then
Harry was kind of a dick in this movie from the very beginning. He always seemed like kind of a dick, which didn't make sense to me. Like, he's supposed to be good and then turns bad, but still kind of, wrestling with his demons.
Yeah. And then there was something else, but now I can't even remember what it was. But other than the fact that you actually see the last shot of the movie in the freaking trailer.
Yeah. Yes, you do. Was because they set it up that Rhino's going to be like one of the main bad guys. They make you think that he's going to be a major part of the movie.
I guess timing wise, that's the irritating thing is like, okay, you get Electro, who's you could say is the primary villain. He gets the most screen time, and then Green Goblin doesn't make an appearance until like 2 hours and 15 minutes into the movie, or something like that, and then he's only on screen for like 5 minutes. And then Rhino makes an appearance for like 2 minutes at the end. So if you're expecting like a Grand Google 3-on-1 fight, you're not going to get it.
No, not going to get it. You're not going to get a lot of things. You're going to get a ton of shit in Spider-Man 2, but it's not going to be anything that you want.
That is true.
All right.
Basically, this just doesn't, for me personally, this doesn't bode well for Justice League and Batman Superman.
No. Well, let's get out of spoilers and we can talk about that. So we're back. I think that it doesn't bode well for X-Men Days of Future Past. That's what I'm concerned about now, because
I was initially concerned about that too, but somebody told me that it was only like a 3-issue arc it was like only 100 pages or something. It was a contained story. So I'm like, okay.
Because, I mean, have you seen the latest trailer for that where it just looks ridiculous? It just looks like there's so much in that movie that's going on. I mean, they're jumping through time. There's like 50 different characters.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Is like I was like confused on their time jumps. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, oh, that's cool, but like, how is this happening? So, but I have more faith in what Bryan Singer is going to do with the next 2 X-Men than what Sony is going to do with the next 10 Spider-Mans.
Right, and that's the key. I think that you said it correctly. What Sony's going to do, because I really don't think that Mark Webb has much control over what happens here.
Nope.
I think that Fox is probably giving Bryan Singer a little bit more control over how the story of X-Men evolves, especially after X-Men 3 and what a disaster that was.
Yep.
I mean, I think I'm excited for X-Men. I think that it looks good, but I am concerned because the pattern is the more superheroes, mutants, whatever villains you want to put into a movie, the more muddled it gets and the tougher it is to latch on to any kind of cohesive story.
Right.
So right. I am concerned about it, but I mean, hopefully they'll do it in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, but then with the DC universe, the next 2 big tentpole movies are being directed by Zack Snyder, so some people will probably say like, great. Me, I'm again very skeptical because I wasn't a huge fan of Man of Steel, and knowing that he has his hands in Batman, Superman, and Justice League, so again, I'm like wondering, are these even going to be any good?
I have no faith in DC at all. Like I just lost all faith in what they're doing.
And then what we're complaining about here with the lack of properly introduced villains, now they're jumping right into it, and total lack of introduction to at least 5 or 6 characters who should have their own origin movies before being thrown together. It's like, again, too much too soon.
Yeah. And you're referring to the Justice League movie?
Yeah, Justice League or Sinister Six for that matter, because nobody knows what's going to be transpiring in 3, 4, or 5. I'm like, are these just going to be against Set Us or Sinister Six? Is Sinister Six just going to go right in and then the audience is left to sort it out? Like,
yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a mess. It's probably going to be a mess. I mean, I think that I really liked X-Men First Class. I thought that it was quite good, but looking back, it's really just the Michael Fassbender stuff that was really good in that movie. Right. Like that was definitely the highlight. So I don't know about this one. I think that it could be good as long as they don't fuck it up with all the different characters. And I heard that Rogue's going to be back in it now. I guess they originally took her scene out, but I guess it's going to be back in now in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. And as far as Justice League goes, I'm very skeptical of that. I mean, I feel like each of these characters deserve their own movie, at least one, before jumping to a Justice League.
Yeah, and another one desperately needs a reboot.
Yeah.
Being Green Lantern.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm sure that it won't be the Ryan Reynolds. If they do include Green Lantern in Justice League, which I'm sure they will, I don't think it'll be Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern, which is going to confuse people. People aren't going to know. I mean, I would hope that they would use Jon Stewart, but as the Green Lantern, but you know, I don't know how they're going to go with that. I feel like the Flash needs his own movie. I love the Flash, and I think that he deserves his own movie,
right, and
not just a CW
Aquaman,
show. Especially
Aquaman. I mean, come on, you really.
Yeah, that was a rumor that was floating around this week that Matt Damon was going to be Aquaman. I don't think it's true though.
Yeah, he laughed it off, but then again, who knows? Maybe he really is.
It'd be weird. It'd be weird to have Ben Affleck as Batman and Matt Damon as Aquaman. I think it'd be strange. But anyway, getting back to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, final thoughts. Ernie, what do you think? What's kind of like your just general consensus? What are you going to tell somebody that hasn't seen it yet?
There are things to like in the movie, But if you're basically this is what I told people. If you're a fan of the Marvel universe that Marvel Studios set up, don't expect that here. So I basically just said is like expect something on the level of Spider-Man 3, but not as bad. Mostly in terms of character development and plot. It was just again, I just tell them there's just too much going on for one movie. Some people may just like that, others may not.
I think that there are some fun sequences in it. I think the dialogue is decent, although I believe that there are some kind of eye-rolling moments. I can't remember. There was like one specific one-liner that Jamie Foxx said, and I can't remember what it was, but I remember thinking like, oh my God, this feels like it's Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin all over again. But overall, I think as far as like big blockbuster popcorn flicks go, it's fine. You just gotta turn your brain off and try not to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at this point we've just been kind of spoiled with the Marvel Studios stuff.
Yeah.
Either that, or it's just that I'm starting to feel the fatigue, like the superhero fatigue, because all these movies are starting to feel the same. And I know that a lot of other people have been complaining about that, but this movie it does nothing for me. Like, I'm going to forget everything that happened in this movie by next week. Guaranteed. Just like I forgot everything that happened in the first one.
Yep, because I liked the first one. I didn't think it was great, but I liked it. And I'm like, I could barely remember stuff. I was like talking to somebody. He's like, wait a minute, was C. Thomas Howell in the last one? Was he in Spider-Man 3? They're like, no, that was the last one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I completely forgot that he was in that, so it shows you how much I retained from the first one. I remember liking the first one, though. I thought it was fine. Comparing the two, you would say that the first one was better than this one?
Yeah, I definitely say the first one's better.
I'm going to say, I guess, I'm going to say they're pretty much the same for me. Like, they were both, I mean, I guess just as far as story and plot-wise, the first one was better just because it was more concise, but there were a lot of issues with the plot of the first one. Like,
yeah, with the first one, you look at the only villain was Lizard, and they took their time to develop that character before he finally makes the change.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Not here.
Yeah, not here. Well, I believe I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. What are you gonna give it out of 10?
For me, it's floating between a 4.5 and a 5. Probably closer to a 5 because there are elements in there I did like a lot about it, but just the stuff that I didn't like, and also because of the whole Marvel thing weighing down upon it, kind of like clouds my judgment of it a little bit. But yeah, I guess I'll go with a 5.
There you have it. Amazing Spider-Man 2 in theaters now. Oh, quick question. Did you see it in 3D?
I saw it in IMAX 3D.
IMAX 3D.
And
How
3D
was that?
Overall, primarily in the action scenes, the 3D was really cool. I probably would not advise sitting close if you're seeing it in IMAX 3D. Because it was like at times it got a little distorted because there was so much going on in 3 dimensions. I was like, whoa, overload. But
yeah, I caught it. I know it was post converted, so I wasn't sure. I caught an early screening of it, but it was in 2D. So, all right, well there you have it. Amazing Spider-Man 2 in theaters now. Thank you so much, Ernie, for taking some time to talk with us.
Quite welcome.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about some predictions. Last week we said Amazing Spider-Man 2. You said 67. I said 69. Actual 54.
Ooh.
Yeah. Walk of Shame. You said 30. I said 32. Actual 12. It's so funny. I was kind of hoping it had a 0 as of Saturday. It was holding it at 0, and I was like, oh man, I hope it holds. It didn't. A couple people liked it. Next week we have Neighbors. I think this one's going to be pretty good.
This looks pretty funny.
I think it's going to be funny. I'll say 79.
I'm gonna go 80.
And we also have Chef. What are you thinking on this?
Chef?
Favreau.
I'm gonna go 78.
I'm going to say 82 on Chef. And limited release next week, we have Legend of Oz, Dorothy's Return, which I don't know what movie I was in, but I actually saw a trailer for this in the theater, and it looks like the worst animation ever. It looks like food fight animation.
Wow.
It not quite that bad, but it looks
It's
very,
close.
very terrible.
It's close.
We also have The Double, the Richard Ayoade.
Oh, thank God. I can't wait to see this damn thing.
Yeah, I think it looks interesting. I'm interested to see it. We also have Palo Alto,
No.
Giacoppola's
No.
movie based on the
Fuck.
Franco short stories.
Fuck. No. No.
I'll check it out.
God damn it. No.
I'll see what's going on
Stop.
with it.
Stop. Stop it. Stop it.
So I also have Mom's Night Out. You more excited about Mom's Night Out?
That sounds awful. Whatever that is.
Devil's Knot, which we actually have a review for that up.
Do we?
Yeah, Ernie went to early screening, press screening of that. Supposedly it's very bad.
No kidding.
Yeah. This is the one with Colin Firth, right? And Reese Witherspoon?
Is this the Atom? Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Fed Up also comes out, which is the Katie Couric documentary about nutrition.
Oh, fantastic. That sounds
Because we need
shit ton of fun.
we need more documentaries about nutrition. There aren't enough.
Exactly.
The Wedding Video, which is not the sex tape. Don't get that confused. The sex tape. This is the Wedding Video. God's Pocket also comes out in limited release. That one I'm actually somewhat interested in, although I heard not very good things out of Sundance on that. Stage Fright, which I saw at South by, which wasn't too bad, surprisingly. And Damnation also comes out. Documentary about dams.
Ooh. I have to say,
See it?
I'm slightly surprised here that the Wedding Video stars Robert Webb.
Yeah, I saw that.
It still looks terrible, but
It does. It does.
Robert
Next
Webb's
week on
in it.
DVD and Blu-ray, we have The Art of the Steal. Awful Nice. I'd recommend that one.
Jet skis.
Jet skis.
If you want to learn how to ride a jet ski properly, please watch Awful Nice. Breaks it down perfectly for you.
Sends him out for supplies, comes back with a Virtual Cop 2 arcade machine. You
yes.
come back with a Virtual Cop machine? Virtual Cop 2. Oh, great. Mr. Jones also comes out on DVD and Blu-ray. Skip that. Son of Batman, which kind of interested in that one. Generally, those DC animated movies are pretty decent, so
Yeah.
might check that out depending on how the animation is. Like that's a big factor for
Yeah.
me. Sometimes the animation is not appealing to me, so I generally skip those. Still Mine, which I don't know too much about.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look it up. And Veronica Mars.
Oh, God.
Veronica Mars.
I'm so glad that that's over.
For now,
Yeah.
until they make a sequel.
Oh, dude, Jesus.
I wonder if they do a sequel, if it's going to be on Kickstarter.
Probably.
I think it'd be crazy if it was. Crazy stupid. on their part. All right. Well, I think that wraps. Criterion.
I have one Criterion.
That's right.
That is 1951's Ace in the Hole by Billy
Ace in the Hole.
Wilder.
Oh.
Yeah. Kirk Douglas. Giving perhaps one of his best performances. This is his, Wilder's follow-up to Sunset Boulevard. Sort of a indictment of American culture, especially American media. I want to see this one.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I've never seen it.
Yeah. I want to.
Check that out. All right. Well, I think that'll wrap it up for all the latest film news and reviews. Visit us at filmpulse.net. Send us your questions to podcast@filmpulse.net, and we'll be sure to answer them on the show. Follow us on Twitter @filmpulse.net, and be sure to rate us on iTunes. We appreciate that very much. For filmpulse.net, my name is Adam.
And I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you on Thursday for Ryan Watches a Movie.
One night to be confused, one night to speed up truth. We had a promise made, 4 hands and then away. Both under influence, we had divine sense to know what to say. Mind is a razor.
With me today, we have Kevin. How you going?
Haha, yeah. Yeah.
Normally I could just rolls right off the tongue, but sometimes I fuck it up. All right.
Yeah, why not?